This content is brought to you by Link2, which makes private equity investment very easy. Link2 is democratizing the process of being able to invest into tech companies and crypto companies. Previously, this opportunity was only available to venture capitalists, hedge funds, and investment firms. Well, now, if you are an accredited investor, you can get this opportunity before you to be able to invest into crypto companies like Ripple, BitPay, Dapper Labs, Uphold, Abra, and many more. Link2 continues to add these respective companies and their portfolio is growing. So this is a great opportunity to double dip, to be able to hold the crypto tokens such as Ethereum, Algorand, XRP, or whatever it may be, and also invest into the companies that are building the infrastructure of the crypto market. And Link2 was part of the group that invested into Coinbase pre-IPO. And of course, that did really well for them. Well, you have the opportunity to catch the next Coinbase with Link2. So definitely check them out. It's once again the opportunity to double dip, just like the VCs, just like the hedge funds. Check out Link2, link in the description.
Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Alessio Rastani, who's a cryptocurrency analyst, stock market and FX chartist, and a trader at leadingtrader.com. Alessio is also a speaker and mentor. Alessio, it's an honor to have you on the show. As we were talking about before the recording, I'm a big fan and I followed your content for years.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, Alessio, so I want to get your thoughts on the current condition of the markets. It's bloody out there. Stock market, crypto, real estate's about to go down. What are your thoughts on what's happening? And is this primarily being driven by the Fed and they're raising rates and trying to combat inflation?
Well, obviously, it's a good question you ask. I'm not a fundamentals person, but you are right. The Fed has not made it easy for the stock market. So you're not seeing that free flow of money, liquidity that the stock market has been used to for the last, beginning of this major bull market in stocks. So finally, you're correct that the end of quantitative easing and the tightening of monetary conditions, the market, this makes it an unfriendly environment or unfavorable environment for the markets, for the stock market. And of course, that's related to Bitcoin because Bitcoin and stock markets are positively correlated. And also because both markets, stock market and Bitcoin, they usually do well when there's an appetite for risk. When there's no appetite for risk, like in a bear market or in a recession, they don't do very well. Having said that, we've never had Bitcoin during a recession, so we don't know. So in the last major recession we had, the Great Recession of 2008, from 2007 to 2008, Bitcoin didn't exist at the time. Bitcoin had been around, Bitcoin came after that. So my point is, we're about to find out how Bitcoin truly performs in a major recession when it starts. We don't know when a recession is going to start. It may happen. It may start this year. It might start next year. My personal view is that a recession or a depression or even a stock market bear market will not be good for Bitcoin. We've already seen Bitcoin does not really do well when the stock markets go down, when the economy doesn't look good. And I think the reason we know why that is. If a recession begins and people begin to lose jobs and unemployment rises and if companies begin to lay off, causing more unemployment, bankruptcies, and so on and so on, the less money people have in their pockets, the less likely they're going to use that for Bitcoin. In fact, more likely what's going to happen is, I actually made a video about this. You might have seen it, Tony. I think it was about a couple of years ago. I don't know when the video came about. Well, basically I said was, look, that a recession will not be good news for Bitcoin, simply because what people will do is they will empty their wallets. Probably they'll cash in their Bitcoin, and even hodlers, even people will say, never, I will never do it. The fact is, you may not have a choice. Like if people begin to lose their jobs in a recession, and if people have less money, as I said, in their pockets, and you have to pay rent, you got to pay your bills, right? or in a business, you got to pay your employees. What other choice do you have except to cash in whatever reserves you have, whether it's Bitcoin reserves, crypto, gold even. Gold doesn't always do well either in a recession or a bear market in stocks, because for the same reason, as governments need more money, they cash in their gold. Eventually it does well, though. I think gold eventually will, we're not talking about gold, I know that, but yeah. I think long-term, Bitcoin and gold will do well. Long-term wise, I think that even towards the end of a recession, at the start of the next major bull market, I think we'll see Bitcoin and gold probably do well. But yeah, during that period of recession and indeed a bear market in stocks, whenever that begins, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I don't think Bitcoin is going to do well in that period, in the period of a economic downturn or in the period of economic recession. Yeah, go ahead.
So you certainly foresee more pain ahead, maybe towards the end of this year. I know folks are looking at the Fed, and they're only going to be able to raise rates as so much, right? Before there's pain across the board, wealthy folks, poor folks, and so forth. When do you think we see a reversal and then these assets start to move up in value again?
Yeah, no, actually, I'm not. It's not the case that I'm seeing more pain. Although it's perfectly possible. I'm actually neutral on the stock market right now. I'm also neutral on Bitcoin as well. The reason is I'm waiting for Bitcoin to give us some kind of indication that we've seen an uptrend, or we've seen a strong capitulation. I think there's been some capitulation already on Bitcoin when it fell below 20,000. And went to 18 to 17K. And just in case your viewers, in case your people are not familiar, I made a video about this. You probably saw it, Tony. Capitulation does not mean the bottom. Capitulation does not mean the exact bottom itself. It's a region, it's a zone where you're getting closer and closer to a potential bottom. It's a region where people begin to give up. All right. So for example, when the stock markets crashed in 2020, there was a region between there was a zone where essentially the stock market saw capitulation. Okay, this wasn't the exact bottom. It's more of a price. It's a price zone. Same goes with Bitcoin. I would say anything below 18,000 on Bitcoin is a region of capitulation. So you might say anything from 18,000 to 15K or 18,000 to 12K, if it goes there. That is, you could say that's a region of capitulation. Okay. A zone where you might see people giving up, just absolutely getting panicked and giving up. And also you see buyers joining in as well. You see professionals. You might see professionals start to get in. I'm actually, I'm already beginning to build a small position on the way down. So when Bitcoin dropped to, let's say, 18K, I bought a little bit. Even below, I think 19K, I bought a little bit as well. So my point is that I've been building a tiny, small position, not taking too heavy risks. And again, if it goes lower, then fine. I'll continue to buy smaller amounts. And I should say that probably the best thing to do, I'll come back to this point, I don't want to mention it. Probably the best thing to do for people is just to wait for an uptrend, wait for a higher low. It's too risky, I think.
Oh, sure.
Especially for beginners, especially for people who don't have much experience in this kind of stuff. I think it's risky to start trying to pick a bottom. I don't think it's a good idea to do that. Just wait for the price to stabilize, make a higher low, and then you can maybe get long or become more bullish. Going back to your question, so it's not the case that I see. Basically, my point is that I'm remaining neutral at the moment on the stock market until I see a clear sign that either we're definitely going into a bear market or that it's a reversal. So I'm not bullish, but I'm not bearish either, which sounds strange. But the reason is, on a weekly chart of the stock market, on the Dow and the S&P, we're very close to the 200 weekly average. Okay, that's a regional support. So we basically come down. If you there's no need to look at charts, but if you imagine the stock market, it's come from its highs of 4,800 down first to the 200 weekly average, which is a very important level. Sorry, we haven't reached that level yet. That level is about 3,500 on the S&P. It's about 20. So I think it's about 28,000 on the Dow. So that's a level of important support. And also, it's come back down to its COVID, or just just around the COVID highs. That's about 3,500, approximately 3,500, 3,600 level. Okay, we're not that far away from 3,500, 3,600. Okay, and the reason why that's important is because a very important level of support for the stock market, and that's important because as long as we're above that level, I cannot get too heavily bearish at this point. Okay, it's only if we break that support with strong force, or another alternative is if we see it bounce, and then another drop back down below 3,600 or below 3,500, then the risk increases of more of a sustained long-term or medium-term bear market and potential recession as well. So we need to wait for that. That may never happen, by the way. We'll have to see. What I'm saying is I'm waiting for confirmation. Sure. On the other side, if the stock market, and I know we're not talking about this, I know your viewers are probably more interested in Bitcoin than they are about the stock market, but it's important because the two are linked.
Yeah,
the two are important. You need to look at. I always say it's important to see what's happening on the stock market if you also want to see what's happening in Bitcoin. Although sometimes Bitcoin gives you clues too. I'm not saying Bitcoin doesn't. Bitcoin does give you clues. How are we doing for the signal, by the way? Is it okay?
Oh, yeah. It's coming through clear.
Okay, good. So what was I saying was, yeah. However, if the stock market rallies above its June highs, if the S&P, for example, goes above if the S&P goes above 4,200 and closes above that in the next few weeks, that could be a very bullish sign for both the economy and the stock market, because a move and a close above 4,200 would be a clear sign to bulls. Essentially, it's a sign that the likely downtrend in the stock market is ending and we're moving back into a bull market. That's something I'm waiting to see if it happens. We'll see. It's a bit early to say that. But that would be a good sign for Bitcoin as well. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, there are some narratives that appear to be favoring that, in that the midterm elections are going to come up. We know the presidents have used the Fed as a political weapon sometimes, if you want to call it that. So that's certainly a great possibility, right? But there's, of course, the Michael Burrys of the world who said we're in the mother of all bubbles and it's the end of the world. A bit of exaggeration, sensationalism there.
Yeah, I mean, I like Michael Burry. He certainly. I watched the film, what's it called, The Big Short.
Yeah.
And I know the story about Michael Burry, how he shorted the stock market. I would love to do the same. Listen, I'm kind of biased because I would prefer the stock market and Bitcoin. I would prefer. When I say prefer, I don't mean it's going to happen, but I just prefer it. I would like that scenario where the stock market goes higher and I short it from higher levels. I don't really want to start shorting it. Although I'm a bit short at the moment anyway, but not too much. But my point is, I would much prefer to short the stock market at much higher levels, near all-time highs, near the prior time. So I would like that. I would prefer that. But if I don't get that, fine. I mean, if you don't get that, then fine. But my point simply is, one thing I've learned in the past is, keep an open mind. Try always to keep an open mind, because the market always tends to throw surprises, and there may still be surprises. And I'll give you an example. There are many data at the moment. There's a lot of data that's coming through, statistical data that shows the next 2 months could be very bullish for the markets, which might be good for Bitcoin as well. So, and there are some data that suggest maybe even the next 12 months may be positive as well. So there's a lot of mixed messages here. So there's some data that suggests the 2 months period could be very bullish, and even the 12-month period could be very bullish for the markets. And yes, there are some data that shows that it's the exact opposite, that we might be heading for a recession and a major bear market. The bullish signs are more looking at sentiment, looking at how everybody's become very extremely panicked and fearful. And that usually tends to be a bullish sign for the market. So And there are some signs that shows the exact opposite. That shows that, yeah, as Michael Burry would say, this is likely the beginning of a major economic downturn, and a downturn, and a recession, and a bear market. My point is, I'm remaining neutral at the moment, and I want to make this very clear. I'm remaining neutral until the market gives us a much more higher probability confirmation, of either a bear market and a bull market. I'm going to make a video about this at some point, about this confirmation signal it's much better than the signals we're seeing right now. Like the mainstream media, loves to hear about the 20% drop from the highs.
Yeah.
Like the mainstream media says, okay, well, if you have a 20% drop from the highs on the stock market, then you're in a bear market. Actually, that is the most terrible definition of a bear market, the 20% rule. It's worse than a coin toss. It's worse than a coin toss, or flipping a coin. There's a much better methodology out there, which I'm going to talk about. For example, I'll just give you an example. If the market, if Bitcoin and the stock market, if they have a bounce, more of a sustained rally or bounce, and then they drop again, then you have a very, very good clue that this is, something really bad. Okay. So for example, if the stock market and Bitcoin were to rally back to a moving average, 21 moving average on a weekly or a monthly chart, and then break down again, then you have a much better sign of a more sustained bear market. But at this moment in time, I'm remaining neutral until I get something much more concrete. And I know there's no certainty or concreteness in the stock market or Bitcoin. I know that. What I mean is just something that's better probability than the mixed messages we're getting everywhere.
I wanted to ask, I know you're more of a trader. Do you have like a long-term hodl position for Bitcoin, and are you buying any altcoins like XRP, Ethereum, or anything like that?
Not as much as I used to. I'm not as keen on those altcoins, except Ethereum. Yeah, I love Ethereum and I love Bitcoin. There's one more altcoin I'm looking at it. Haven't bought much yet. Cardano, I'm watching. I'm also watching XRP, don't get me wrong here, but I'm not too heavily keen on those altcoins. So I'm mainly watching the big ones, Ethereum, Bitcoin at the moment. We'll see what happens with those two. Just to be clear, on Bitcoin, we've not yet seen the sign of an uptrend. Ethereum does look stronger, though. Yeah. Ethereum's chart does look stronger. What I mean by that is that the structure on those charts, just the structure of the price seems to just to show more strength than Bit. And that's a good thing. If Ethereum is showing more strength, that's a positive sign for Bitcoin too. However, it's a bit too soon right now to be bullish, to be heavily bullish. I do think we are, again, as Bitcoin has been dropping into below 20K. I made a video about this recently. There are some signs of initial capitulation. We'll see if that leads to more capitulation, especially if Bitcoin makes lower lows. We'll see about that. We'll see what happens. So if Bitcoin, and I say if Bitcoin were to make another lower low, let's say it drops below 17K and go to, it may produce even more fear and panic and produce more capitulation. Any levels below that, if that happens. On the other hand, if Bitcoin can hold above 17K and then rally towards, and if it makes a rally above 22,000 and moves towards 23,000, that would actually potentially produce a higher low, which is the first sign of an uptrend. That's another sign I'm looking for as well. So it's a bit too soon right now because none of those things have happened yet. So I think we're just playing the patience game for now. So I think a safer strategy would just be patient, not try to call bottoms just yet. All right. I do like the fact that Bitcoin has dropped down to a long-term trend line, like a trend line going from 2015 to 2020. It's dropped down to that trend line on the Coinbase chart. It's a good level of support, but it's too soon at the moment to say we've reached the bottom until and unless Bitcoin shows a powerful, strong move that moves toward, if it moves towards 23,000, then I'd be more confident about a likely uptrend or indeed a potential bottoming formation. At this moment in time, it's too soon.
And there's also like I think people are a bit worried about certain black swan event or catalysts like Celsius potentially collapsing. We saw the Terra Luna collapse. These things could drive sell pressure and fear, more fear and capitulation. So, like you said, I think it's just best to be patient. I know you don't have much time, so final question I want to ask you. Years ago, I remember you saying Goldman Sachs rules the world. Do you still believe that?
Well, it depends how you interpret that. A lot of people misinterpreted what I said. What I meant simply was that if you really want to know what's going on in the world, people misinterpreted this to think that I meant it as a conspiracy. Not really, no. All I meant to say was that the big decisions in the world, the major decisions, are really made by by big businesses, big corporations, financial corporations. And this is not a secret. Most people know this. It's not a secret that big corporations, like, again, major financial institutions like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan Chase and all that, what they decide, what they do has a major influence on the global markets and the global economy. In fact, it's those institutions that often make the first decision whether to buy something or sell something. For example, we know back in the 2008 financial crisis, Goldman Sachs was betting against the housing market before everybody else. Well, actually, Michael Burry was betting against it too. I think Michael Burry, as we saw in the movie, in the story, The Big Short, they were betting against the housing market before Goldman Sachs was. Goldman Sachs then joined in. They joined in and bet against the housing market before everybody else. Before the majority of people got wind of it. So all I'm trying to say is that the big players in the market, financial institutions, they make the big decisions in the world, which often impacts the markets, the global economy, and all that. They're the first to buy. They're usually the first to buy, the first to sell, and to short against the market. So it's a good idea to see what's going on, what they're doing. It's a good idea to see what they're doing, what the big money is doing. That's all I meant. And it's also a fact that a lot of people who worked in those big institutions, financial institutions, often also end up working in politics. So, for example, you see a lot of people who worked in financial institutions, also they end up working in the White House or in the Federal Reserve or in the central banks, making big decisions that impacts everybody. So that's another factor to bear in mind, and that's really what I meant by it. So, sorry, you were saying.
I know. I was just curious to get your thoughts on it. The updated 2022 version. Because I think a lot of people agree with you, and I think we're seeing a lot of the influence politically and even on regulators within the crypto industry.
Again, I just want to say final word that this, even if we're heading towards a bear market, and a bear market needs to be confirmed. So my point in this video is keep an open mind. Because there could still be surprises, okay? I know, because there's a lot of people out there in the crypto, Bitcoin, and also in the stock market world that seem to have made up their minds. They seem to think that there can only be one conclusion. So some people are absolutely very bullish, thinking definitely we're going up, and some people are absolutely thinking, no, we're definitely going down. I'm seeing a lot more comments on social media that seem to indicate a lot of people are convinced that we're going definitely down to 10K. Now, look, they may be right. My point is, be careful when there's a lot of confidence, too much confidence about a position. Never become too confident about any position. Try to keep an open mind because there could be surprises around the corner. And I think there will definitely be a surprise around the corner in the next few weeks. Okay. So try and keep an open mind about that. And again, even if we're heading towards a bear market, it's an opportunity. The best time, in my view, to make wealth and to make money is in a bear market. Why? Because at the end, when the bear market comes to an end, or when it's likely to end, and when you see capitulation, right? That's the time when that's the right time to start looking for opportunities, potential buying opportunities, and that's when you can make a lot of money, potential long-term money, wealth. Unfortunately, a lot of people made the wrong decision. Most people bought Bitcoin probably at the 69,000, 50,000 highs of 2021. That was the time when you probably were watching my videos as well. And you probably remember I put out a lot of videos saying, this is a very dangerous time. Yeah. This is a very dangerous time, at 69. Yeah. Unfortunately, most people are not contrarians. Most people are, it's very difficult to be contrarian because that means you have to go and think for yourself. It means you have to be lonely and alone. And people think you're stupid. When you say something that the majority does not agree, when everybody else thinks you're crazy and you're stupid because you're disagreeing with the majority opinion, well, it's very painful and it's very uncomfortable. And that's why most people are not contrarians. They tend to follow the herd. So that's the way it is.
It's funny because Jim Cramer has become a meme for that, right? Following mainstream media. And
is he? Yeah. Unfortunately, I like Jim Cramer. I actually bought his book in 2005. I like him. Sometimes, what I mean is, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. The one thing I like about Jim Cramer is he makes things entertaining. He makes things interesting. He makes the stock market not boring, but more entertaining and interesting, which is a good thing about him.
Yeah.
And you're right. Sometimes, unfortunately, media people, even I myself, I'm not saying I'm different. Sometimes I have made a mistake, and I've followed herd opinion too, which has cost me. I did this a few times in the past, unfortunately. It's very difficult. The problem is with Jim Cramer, because he works in the financial media news, mainstream media, you fall into this bubble, and it's very difficult to escape that media bubble when everyone is thinking the same thing. That's why it's a good idea, Tony, as I'm sure you know this, to listen to people who have a different opinion from the rest. Listen to people who have a view that maybe disagrees with your own, maybe a view that completely goes against your own opinion. Sometimes those people can be right as well.
I love what you often talk about and the way you position it in probabilities.
Yeah.
And I've learned to think that way. And what's the likelihood of something happening? And I credit you for that because I never thought of it that way. So
and it's very difficult because a lot of people, I think the majority of people who watch videos on YouTube, like the videos you're putting out, I think and even my viewers as well, I think the majority of people want certainty. They want someone to give them certainty. Why? Because it's human nature. We want certainty. We don't like uncertainty. Uncertainty causes fear.
Yeah.
It makes us feel, and that's part of our brain. Our psychology is wired that we don't like uncertainty. We want the comfort of something that's certain, something that's concrete. But, and I will give some hope. Someone said this, and I don't know who said this, but someone said that uncertainty should be your friend, not your enemy, because it is uncertainty that can make you money. If things were certain, then there would be no fun in it if everything was certain. And also, there's no way you can make money in that kind of situation, because if something is certain to you, then it's certain to everybody else in the institutions and the big money players. You can't make money in that kind of situation, right? So uncertainty should be your friend, because that's the moment, especially if you're a contrarian, and also you need to be a contrarian, but also you need to be a trend follower as well. But my point is that uncertainty is when it creates the situations that actually can make you wealth and money in the long term as well. As long as you protect yourself against risk, and as long as you said, follow probabilities, as long as you follow the probabilities, not the certainty of something. Yeah. So it's not a bad thing, in my opinion, if you're looking at just probabilities and not certainties.
Alessio, always great advice. I'm always learning something from you. Appreciate you. And
thank you, Tony. I appreciate
love to have you back on in the future.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate this, and thanks for having me on the program.